It's been a few days since Stewart HAAS Racing announced that they were shutting down after the end of this season, but I honestly still just can't believe it. It doesn't seem real. Imagine telling someone in 2014 that the champions, Kevin Harvick, with Stewart HAAS, would shut down just 10 years later. It's insane to think about, really. A team that once stood alongside Gibbs and Penske on the top, reduced to a midfield, sometimes field filler team. We have 6 drivers out of a ride, 4 numbers that we don't know the future of, and a silly season is just getting started. So what now? What happened? How did Stewart HAAS Racing fall so hard? Although 2020 was the last time Stewart HAAS Racing was really competitive, I'd argue 2018 was the peak of the team. An insane driver lineup for the time in hindsight. Kurt, Kevin, Almirola, and Bowyer made for an amazing combo at the time. All of their cars won a race that year. It was insane to watch. They were so good, they were pulling away from the pack at tracks like Talladega just because of how good the team chemistry was. Going in 2019, there was a lot of high hopes for SHR. Harvick was good as ever. With more development, Almirola might be able to involve a new championship contender. Bowyer is still doing good despite how long he's been racing for. Kurt jumped ship and went to Chip Ganassi. Monster Energy followed him there. And Daniel Suarez was brought in to replace him. Going into 2020, a lot of changes were made to Stewart HAAS. Suarez was dropped after 1 year, and Clint Bowyer announced he would be retiring from the Cup Series after being a longtime veteran of it. Harvick carried the team, getting, I don't even know how many wins it was. I think it was 10 or close. It was close to 10, which was insane. He was the last dominant driver. He won almost every race after COVID. It was crazy. Custer got a surprise win in Kentucky in his rookie year, which showed a lot of promise in Custer. Clint gave it his all, but unfortunately just came up short. But for a final season, it wasn't too bad. And Almirola was really the weak link. Just having a down year just in general. But Harvick, he was still carrying the team. But unfortunately, even after all the wins, the regular season championship, he came up short of Martinsville. He needed to pass Kyle Busch. Tried to spin Kyle out. It didn't work. Kevin Harvick did not make the Final Four that year. And with that, his last great shot at a championship along with it. Entering 2021, hopes were very high. SHR fans were hoping for redemption after 2020, and a new rookie in Chase Briscoe might do the trick. Unfortunately, this was the beginning of the end for SHR. Cracks were showing. The 2021 season was horrible for Stewart HAAS. They had 1 win in Eric Almirola's New Hampshire win, but everyone else was either a backmarker or a midfielder. Kevin Harvick struggled especially. He went winless for the first time in a while. His most memorable moment was getting into beef with Chase Elliott, which he ended up on the losing end of. Going in 2022, a new era of NASCAR started as the next-gen car debuted after years of testing. Stewart HAAS retained the same lineup, although it was rumored that Almirola would step away from the 10, and it was officially announced that he would. But by season's end, he changed his mind, and it would stay in the 10 car for the following season. With the new car, it was a big learning curve for SHR. But the season looked better than 2021. Briscoe winning at Phoenix was a big shock right away. And Harvick would end up getting his final win, or final few wins for SHR back-to-back at Michigan and Richmond, starting a trend of back-to-back winners at those races. Almirola was alright, but obviously, like stated before, he was driving like it was his last year. And Custer, unfortunately, just wasn't that good. Harvick made the playoffs, but due to parts failure, just couldn't get anywhere with it. Heading in 2023, it was announced that Kevin Harvick would step away from NASCAR full-time and join the Fox Sports booth in 2024, and the Forever campaign started. Custer was sent back down to the Xfinity Series for Stewart HAAS's Xfinity team, and Ryan Preece was brought in to replace him. The main focus was on Kevin Harvick, obviously, but unfortunately, this year would be even worse than 2021. The Stewart HAAS Racing Cup team would go winless for the first time. It was a tragedy. Harvick's final year was basically him just carrying the team while all the others sat in the back of the field and really just didn't do anything. Briscoe and Preece were basically just there, and Almirola did what he could, but just couldn't do anything. But it wasn't all doom and gloom for SHR. The Xfinity team was the exact opposite of the Cup team. They were finding success just about every week, whether that be top 10s or top 5s. Riley Herbst and Cole Custer both won a race in 2023, and Custer would come out on top of the 2023 Xfinity Series champion. After Phoenix 2023, Harvick and Almirola left the team, and a new era of SHR began, symbolized by a new logo which had mixed reviews. But during preseason, a lot of fans noticed that previous sponsors of SHR started jumping ship to other teams. Busch went to Trackhouse, Gear Wrench went to Legacy Motor Club, and Hunt Brothers went to Penske. This worried a lot of fans before the season even started. Noah Gragson was brought in to replace Almirola, and Josh Berry replaced Kevin Harvick in the new Forward campaign. This new era would be short-lived, however, as midway through the 2024 season, it was announced that Stewart HAAS Racing would shut down at season's end, bringing an end to this legendary powerhouse turned field filler. Which brings us to the present. Now, we don't have much information to go on to guess where all the drivers are heading next year. All we know is that Front Row Motorsports has bought one of the charters from Stewart HAAS and will field 3 cars next year. But here are my guesses on where each Stewart HAAS driver will go in 2025. Let's start with Noah Gragson. I think Noah Gragson will drive the new 3rd Front Row car next year, with Bass Pro Shops coming along and sponsoring him. And the same goes for Briscoe. Front Row is about to be in a much different position than they are now. Front Row is about to be the new Ford development team. With SHR now gone, Ford needs a replacement to have a driver pipeline. And Front Row fits that description perfectly. They have the experience, they have the sponsors, and they have the seats available. I think Josh Berry will go to RFK to drive the 60. This might seem unrealistic at first until you realize that Berry is still new to the Cup Series, but it still has pretty good experience behind the wheel of the next gen. I think he'd be a perfect fit because he's a big short track guy and Brad likes those short track racers. Ryan Preece, unfortunately, is probably going to be the one to get the short end of the stick. I think he will not get a Cup ride or a full-time Cup ride next year, but instead go to the Xfinity Series and drive the 25 for AM Racing, being teammates with Haley Deegan. But I do think he might get a Cup ride with MBM if they have a seat available next year. I think Riley Herbst will actually be the one to get that Wood Brothers seat from Harrison Burton. The popular opinion right now is that Briscoe might get that seat. But I think, because of that Monster Energy money, Riley Herbst will get that seat. How will that end? Who knows? And finally, I think Custer will go to Rick Ware Racing to drive the 15 car, either full-time or part-time, depending on what Rick Ware decides to do with that car. So there you have it. The recap on how Stewart HAAS Racing fell from grace, and my predictions on where every driver will go next year. I would love to hear your thoughts on where you think the SHR drivers are going to go next year. I'm Pansome Guy, and we'll see you tomorrow.